This is one of those testimonies that shakes people's beliefs and makes you question everything you thought you knew. How could 3 Imams surrender to Jesus in the same night? My name is Ibrahim Musa. I was once an Imam in the town of Sokoto, northern Nigeria. For many years, I led prayers in the mosque, taught young men the Quran, and settled disputes in our neighborhood. People respected me, and I respected myself as a man of knowledge and dignity. But all of that ended the day sickness came upon me. It began with pain in my legs. At first, I thought it was something small, maybe fatigue or fever. But as weeks turned into months, the pain grew stronger until one morning I could not stand. My legs refused to carry me. That was the beginning of a long, bitter journey. For 4 years, I lay down on my bed, unable to walk, unable to sit without help. My wife, Zainab, became my strength. She lifted me when I needed to sit. She changed my clothes when I sweated too much. She fed me with her own hands when my fingers trembled. My children, young as they were, became my helpers too. They pushed me to the bathroom. They fanned me when the heat became too much and always say, "You will be fine, Baba." It was a condition that drained every part of me. My voice grew so weak that even when I spoke, it was like a whisper. I, who once gave sermons with a loud voice in the mosque, could no longer be heard even in my own home. Many nights I lay awake, staring at the roof, wondering if it would not be better if death came to take me away. There is no pain like the pain of watching your family suffer for you, while you cannot do anything to ease their burden. Every day, Zainab's face became thinner, but she never stopped caring for me. My children grew into young men and women, yet their father was always lying down, never walking, never playing, never providing. When my sickness began, we believed it was only a matter of time before doctors found the cause. My family took me to the hospitals in Sokoto City. I remember how they carried me in the back of a small car, my legs stiff, my body heavy like a sack of stones. The doctors ran tests, gave medicines, and encouraged us to be patient. But after months, there was no improvement. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love to have you join us. We're always excited to welcome thoughtful people like you into this growing community. We traveled to Kaduna, then Abuja. Each hospital had new machines, new specialists, and new expenses. I swallowed more tablets than I could count. They injected me, they massaged my legs, they even suggested surgery. Nothing worked. Each visit left us poorer, and my body remained the same or worse. When the hospitals failed, my people turned to prayers. As an imam, I had many friends in the ministry. 2 of them, Imam Sul and Imam Haruna, never abandoned me. They came to my house regularly. They prayed for me, reciting verses with strong voices while I lay silent, too weak to even raise my hands. They told me to have faith, to endure, to keep reciting certain surahs morning and night. Sometimes they brought oil mixed with special prayers. Other times they suggested herbal treatments. A few times, they even brought other respected imams from nearby towns, men known for their wisdom and healing prayers. My room was always filled with the sound of verses and chants, but my body remained motionless. With each passing year, hope drained away like water from a leaking pot. People whispered that perhaps Allah was punishing me for something hidden. Others said maybe it was the work of evil spirits or enemies. I heard all these things, though no one said them directly to my face. My heart grew tired. Imagine a grown-up man with both family and societal responsibilities, unable to talk or move for good 4 years. The sickness was not only in my body, it entered my spirit too. Every day, I woke up with the same weakness, the same pain, the same shame. My friends prayed, my family worked, doctors tried, but nothing changed. I felt like a prisoner in my own bed, with no release in sight. It was in the 4th year of my sickness, during the Harmattan season, when a stranger entered our town. People whispered about him before I ever saw his face. He was not a politician, nor was he a traitor. They called him an evangelist. His name was Joseph, a man from the south who traveled with only a small bag and a Bible in his hand. He did not stand in the big squares or argue with our leaders. Instead, he moved gently through the streets, greeting people with a smile, stopping to speak with traders in their shops, and sitting with young men at the tea stalls. His message was strange to many. He told Christians to live with dignity in their work, to represent their faith in their businesses, their offices, and in their neighborhoods. He encouraged them to be known by love, not just by words. But what made him different, what made people unable to ignore him, were the miracles that followed him. The first story I heard came from the marketplace. A young boy who had been deaf since birth began to hear after the evangelist prayed for him. The boy's mother cried so loudly that people gathered from every corner. Then there was an old woman, bent over with pain for many years, who stood up straight the moment he laid hands on her. Soon, Muslims themselves began to bring their sick relatives secretly, afraid of what others might say. But when he prayed, they all returned healed. A blind man regained his sight. Everywhere the evangelist passed, testimonies followed. The miracles were notably, we can't deny that. I lay in my room listening to these stories from neighbors and relatives. Each time I heard them, something stirred in my heart, a mixture of hope and fear. Could it be true? Could this stranger hold in his hands what 4 years of doctors and imams could not give me? Yet I was afraid to even think of it. I was an imam, respected once by many. How could I, in my weakness, stretch my hand to a Christian preacher? But my pains were real to me. Still, the stories kept coming, louder than my doubts, until they could no longer be ignored. One quiet evening, after the evening prayers had finished in the mosque, my 2 close friends came to sit with me. Imam Sool sat by the window, his prayer beads running slowly through his fingers. Imam Haruna, always the more direct one, sat near my bed, leaning forward as if carrying a burden. We had been talking about nothing important when Sool lowered his voice. Ibrahim, we have prayed for you these 4 years. We have fasted with you, carried you to different hospitals, called many imams. Yet your condition does not change. His voice trembled, as if he feared his own words. Haruna cleared his throat and leaned closer. I know this will sound strange, my brother, but we must speak the truth. You have heard of this evangelist in town. We have all seen what is happening. People go to him broken and return whole. Even some of our people, quietly, have taken their sick to him at night. They all came back healed. The room grew still. I could hear the night crickets outside, the faint voices of children playing far away, but inside, silence pressed down on us. At last, Sool looked at me, his eyes heavy. We are your friends. We would not deceive you. Perhaps we should call him. Not in the open, but in secret at night when no one will see. My heart pounded in my chest. I wanted to refuse immediately. How could I, an imam, be seen turning to a Christian preacher for help? Yet their words planted a seed in me. I remembered the faces of my children, the weariness of my wife, the hopelessness of my body. For a long time I said nothing. Then, with a voice barely above a whisper, I spoke. If you believe there is hope there, then call him. I am tired of this bed as tears rush down my eyes. If his God can do what our prayers and doctors have not, then let him come. That night, Sool promised he would find a way to reach the evangelist quietly, without stirring suspicion. For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of expectation, mixed with fear, as if something unseen was drawing near. As you follow along with this powerful testimony of transformation, we invite you to engage with our growing community. Let us know where you're watching from and share your thoughts on how his journey resonates with you. Your reactions and comments help create a meaningful dialogue around life-changing experiences like these. And we remain committed to making ourselves accessible to people with such testimony, so we reaching out to our community. It was a moonless night when the knock came at our door. The house was quiet, my children asleep on their mats, my wife resting by my side. Sul and Haruna had gone earlier in the evening, and I knew they had gone to find him. My heart beat heavily in my chest as Zainab rose to open the door. The evangelist entered quietly, wearing a simple shirt and holding nothing but his Bible. He greeted us softly, his presence calm, almost like a gentle breeze. My two friends followed behind him, their faces tense with both fear and hope. He walked straight to my bed and looked at me, not with pity but with a gaze that pierced through me. He asked nothing about my sickness, though anyone could see the weakness in my body. He simply rested his hand on my shoulder, and in that moment, I felt a warmth run through me, a peace I had not known in years. Then, with a soft voice, he prayed. He spoke not like the long recitations I was used to, but like someone speaking to a friend he trusted. He thanked Jesus for being present. He thanked him for already completing the work of healing. Then he turned to me. He stretched out his hand and gently lifted me. His grip was firm yet tender, as if strength itself flowed through his palm. Then he said words I will never forget, that Jesus had already perfected my healing, and I should rise and walk. At first, my legs trembled, weak as dry sticks. My wife gasped, her hands over her mouth. Sul and Haruna leaned forward, their eyes wide. And then, slowly, strength returned where there had been none. My knees straightened, it was literally like a dream, but is happening. My feet pressed against the floor, and before I understood what was happening, I was standing. Tears burst from Zainab's eyes. My children, woken by the noise, came running and clung to their mother, watching me and crying loudly. Sul dropped his prayer beads, and Haruna covered his face in shock. I walked, not 1 or 2 steps, but across the room back and forth, like a man who had never been sick. In that moment, 4 years of suffering ended. I could walk again. I could live again. The room was still filled with the sound of my children crying, my wife's laughter breaking through her tears, and the gasps of my 2 friends. I stood in the middle of them, swaying on legs that had not held me for 4 years, breathing as though I had just woken from a long sleep. The evangelist raised his hand for calm, and slowly the noise subsided. He looked at me again, not as a man astonished by what had happened, but as one who had expected it all along. There was such audacity and assurance in his dealings, my friends were confused. Then he prayed again, this time for everyone in the room. His words carried peace, and even Sul and Haruna, who had once doubted, bowed their heads. After the prayer, he turned to me with a seriousness I cannot forget. He told me that the same Jesus who healed me that night had given me a share in that same power. He let me know that if I would believe and trust, I could lay hands on the sick, even on those worse than my situation, and Jesus would honor those prayers. As he spoke, I felt no fear, no doubt. It was as though light filled the dark corners of my heart. I knew he was not speaking about his own strength, but about a power greater than anything we had known. My wife held my hand tightly, her face glowing though still wet with tears. My children clung to my clothes, whispering, "Baba, Baba, you are walking again." Sul and Haruna exchanged glances, their eyes full of questions, but neither could deny what they had seen with their own eyes. Before leaving, the evangelist gathered us together once more. He prayed with such boldness, declaring that the healing would not only remain but that it would multiply, that others through me would come to know the same Jesus who lifted me from that bed. His words were not heavy or loud, yet they carried a weight that settled deeply inside me. In the days that followed, the story of my healing began to spread quietly through my town. My neighbors who had seen me carried outside in a mat for fresh air were now seeing me walk to the compound gate with my children. Some whispered in confusion, others stared in silence. My wife, Zainab, could not hide her joy. She would smile even when cooking. Meanwhile, the evangelist continued moving through the town. His boldness was unlike anything I had seen. He never hid, though many disliked his presence. He spoke openly that his life was in the hands of Jesus alone. He said if one day he should die, it would only be because Jesus had chosen that day, for no man had power to take his life away. Even the extremists, men who were feared in Sokoto, began to keep their distance. They had seen things no man could deny: the deaf hearing, the blind seeing, the crippled walking. I myself was living proof. Though they hated his message, they feared the authority he carried. They could not explain it, yet they could not silence it. I thought often about his courage. Here was a man without wealth, without soldiers, without political power, yet he walked as if the whole world could not touch him. I remembered the days I lay in bed, afraid even of death itself. Now, watching him, I saw a life without fear, and my heart longed for that same freedom. At night, I replayed in my mind the moment he lifted me, the strength that surged into my legs, the peace that settled in my chest. I knew then that what had touched me was not from man. It was from the living Jesus he always spoke about. One evening, a week after my healing, Sul and Haruna came again to visit. We sat together in the courtyard. The air was cool, and for the first time in years, I sat upright without pain, stretching my legs like a man who had never been sick. We spoke for a long time about what had happened, each of us circling around the truth we could not ignore. Finally, I broke the silence. I told them I had made up my mind, that I, Ibrahim Musa, along with my family, would follow Jesus. I said the power that raised me from that bed was not the power of men, but the mercy of Jesus, and I could not return to life as it was before. My words hung heavy in the air. Sul dropped his gaze, his beads resting motionless in his hands. Haruna, usually quick with words, was silent, staring at me as though weighing his own heart. At last, Sul spoke. He admitted he too had been shaken, not only by my healing but by the boldness and purity of the evangelist's life. He said he had prayed in secret for understanding, and the peace he felt was unlike anything he had known before. Haruna leaned forward, his eyes glistening. He confessed that when he saw me walk that night, something broke inside him, a wall he had carried for years. He said he could no longer deny that Jesus was alive, and that night he too wanted to surrender his life. Zainab came out with tea and sat beside me, her hand resting gently on mine. She said she had already decided in her heart the day I walked again, for she knew no man could have done it. My children, standing nearby, nodded eagerly, their faces bright with excitement and innocence. There, under the night sky, 3 Imams and a family bowed their hearts to Jesus. That same night, the evangelist returned when Sul quietly sent word. He entered our home with his usual calmness, as though he already knew what had been decided. We told him of our hearts, how we could no longer deny the truth we had seen and touched. He smiled warmly and gathered us together. We knelt there on the floor, me, my wife Zainab, my children, and my 2 dear friends, Sul and Haruna. The evangelist prayed with us, his words filled with a love so deep. He thanked Jesus for every life that had turned that night, and he asked that strength, courage, and wisdom would carry us in the days to come. Afterward, he spoke with gentleness, telling us this was only the beginning. He let us know that we must grow in faith, in the knowledge of Jesus, and in the fellowship of other believers. He connected us with a small church on the edge of Sokoto, a place where believers quietly gathered, often in fear of being discovered, yet holding firm to their hope. The pastor of that church welcomed us like family. They had heard whispers of my healing, but seeing me walk into their midst brought tears to their eyes. They sang softly, their voices trembling with joy, and I felt a warmth among them that I had not known even in the closest circles of my old life. As I look back now, I can only marvel at the mercy that found me. Ibrahim, the sick Imam, became Ibrahim, the servant of Jesus. My story is simple, but it carries a weight I cannot keep to myself. Jesus is alive, and his power is real. He is the healer, the Savior, and the Lord of all. He took a broken man like me, for years forgotten on a bed, and made me a witness of his mercy. So I speak now not only to believers in Sokoto, but to every follower of Jesus who may hear this story. Be consistent in your walk. Do not grow weary, do not hide your faith. Represent him in your homes, your work, your neighborhoods, just as that evangelist did in ours. For you may never know whose life will be changed, whose family will be restored, whose soul will be saved because you chose to stand boldly for him. As for me, I have decided that for the rest of my days, my steps, the very legs he restored, will walk in his service.